What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. Now we are into week 8 already. Fantasy football is flying. We're halfway through the season. I wish there was more games. I wish there was more weeks of football, but we are halfway through, so the championship playoffs should be in some of you guys' minds. I know a lot of teams are gearing up right now, looking on to weeks and weeks beyond. Make sure their bye weeks are good. Make sure they got guys on stash that are ready to blow. Injuries are happening. News like today with Dalvin Cook going probably out until week 11. So there's questions. Is it time to move on from Dalvin Cook? Is it time to move on from Derrick Henry or Leonard Fournette or Demaryius Thomas? Now there's guys that have been forgotten that had a big splash in the waiver wire like Keelan Cole. Is it time to just get rid of him? Is it over for, Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, being that the offense is looking like shit right now? So there's a lot of things to cover in this episode, and I'm gonna try to mix it in. It's gonna probably answer some of you guys' questions. I know I want you guys to still leave questions below on start and sits. I'll try to get back to you as best as I can. Now, I know this is a long intro. I haven't done an intro this long, actually, but let's get right into the episode. Now, start or sit, week 8. I want to jump right into it. We're going to talk about Demaryius Thomas. Now, I have him sitting this week, and there was some trade talk, some trade rumors going around. You got from the horse's mouth that they're not looking to trade Demaryius Thomas, so it looks like that trade talk is basically hushed for now, but you can't really trust, any of these guys in the industry, because look what happened to Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy. I know that's basically zoning in on one team, the Eagles, that did that, saying they weren't trading them, and then boom, what do you know, traded. But Denver has his replacement sitting in the wing, just sitting on the wing waiting to go. Because Sutton is outperforming Demaryius Thomas right now, and another underwhelming, performance out of him. So it's kind of hard to trust Demaryius Thomas week in and week out as a flex play, or even as a wide receiver 2, 1, or wide receiver 3, whatever the case may be. Just him in your starting lineup every Sunday is in question right now. It's just hard to trust him being, the guy that we know he can be. It's not like, I don't want to say he lost a step. It's just that the offense is moving into a more younger and different direction right now. And with Case Keenum at the helm at quarterback, struggling this week and then doing good this week, it's like inconsistent with the quarterback play. But even with the quarterback play being inconsistent, it looks like Demaryius Thomas is not catching on when he's hot, or he even blowing up when they're cold. It's just hard to trust him. It's just hard to trust him, putting him in the starting lineup on Sunday. Now he has the Chiefs this week. They faced off in week 4. He had very underwhelming stats. He had 2.4 points, full point PPR. So he was just a non-factor last time they faced Kansas City. I'm definitely not starting him this week. Week after week, Kansas City is showing that they're not that bad of a defense. Like, they're not terrible, but they're still bad. But I'm not putting my eggs in one basket with Demaryius Thomas this week going into the start against Kansas City, even though it's a beat-up team. And I know for a fact they'll be playing from behind because Mahomes is still slinging the rock like he's out of his mind right now. So it looks like Demaryius Thomas overall will get the bench this week. Next up, Marlon Mack. What a week did this guy have. Now, he had a career high. He had 30 points in full point PPR leagues, and he just had basically a breakout week. Now, I had told you guys that being that they're desperate for a running game. Now, Marlon Mack was definitely an option for her to pick up if you didn't pick up the Smallwood or the Clement in previous episodes that I talked about. He was definitely an option that I spoke about being into that role, because once he comes back from injury, I already knew the Colts were going to plug him in to be that runner that they desperately needed. Nyheim Hines is still in the mix. He's definitely the pass-catching back, so he established himself in that role. Marlon Mack's going to be the early down back, and it looks like he's going to be on that goal line. So with that being said, with the matchup this week against Oakland, they're allowing 6 yards per carry and the 3rd most fantasy points for running backs. Looks like a great matchup for Marlon Mack this week, and he's going to cruise right into that bye week with high numbers, I believe. He's going to see a lot of touches this game, and I look to see the Colts come out with a dub and Andrew Luck throwing for at least 4 touchdowns. So that offense is going to be rolling. Marlon Mack is going to have another great week. He put up a career high last week, so let's see if he could top this week. So being that said, Marlon Mack, you get the start. Next up, real quick, start or sit Corey Clement or Smallwood. It's really up in the air. Now, for me to actually give an answer to that, I would say sit, being that Clement has the uneven workload with Smallwood in the picture, and it doesn't look that great with the matchup against Jags this week. So that backfield is struggling right now. I can't see myself putting Clement or even Smallwood into my flex position this week, being that they have the Jags. Jags are still scary. I know they had a couple hiccups over the past couple of weeks, but they're still stopping the run, people. So regardless of what's happening, getting done over top or downfield, deep balls, or whatever the case may be, they're still stopping that run. So this week, the Eagles' running game, that running back core, it doesn't look too great for them. So Clement, Smallwood, got to get the bench. Next up, Chris Carson for the Seattle Seahawks. I love the matchup this week. He's coming in fresh off of bye week against the Lions that are allowing the 6th most fantasy points against running backs in full point PPR. So that's great news there. I'm not too worried about Rashad Penny or Mike Davis cutting into his production, really. He's still the lead back. I know we've seen Mike Davis and Rashad Penny get put into the game against Oakland, but that's because Seattle had the game in the bag. So I'm not too really worried about a decline in Chris Carson's production. So Chris Carson, you definitely get the start this week. I love the matchup. So I'm not going to say pump the brakes yet, being that there's a running back committee. Chris Carson is still the lead back there. There is no worries there. Chris Carson, you get the start. Next up, Michael Crabtree. I'm not liking the matchup this week, so I got Michael Crabtree on the bench this week. He gets the bench. So with that being said, he's not shaking his issues of dropping passes and dropping balls. He had a really solid last week, I would say, in a flex position at a wide receiver 3. He's currently ranked wide receiver 28, but it's just the drop passes that are very concerning, and he's facing a tough defense this week. They're ranked 7th, the Panthers, overall, and they're ranked 9th against the pass. So it's just pump the brakes real quick on Michael Crabtree. I know a lot of guys are throwing him into the lineup, but he needs to see his 3rd touchdown this year. He needs to see some consistency for the rest of the season so he can be a valuable flex wide receiver to play. I just don't like the matchup this week with the Panthers. It's pretty scary. So with Joe Flacco at the helm, he's going to have to look elsewhere, being that Michael Crabtree's not a reliable source if he's going to keep dropping these passes. Now, John Brown, he is definitely, oh my God, I can't say it anymore. It's every episode I mention John Brown. Like, this guy is just going to be Flacco's go-to guy for the next couple years. He's a deep ball threat. That's his specialty. So with that being said, he's looking to be very reliable to Joe Flacco. He looks like he could be trusted. He's leading the team in targets. But Michael Crabtree is there. I understand that. But it's just this week that I'm not trusting Crabtree in my lineup. I'm not trusting that he'll be able to be of service, to be valuable in a flex play this week. So, Crabtree, you get the bench. Next up, Matt Breida. Last week, he re-injured that ankle, which was on the first play of the game. It's very frustrating because he had the matchup. He had the Rams. They are struggling against the run. I say this every week, and every week they show and prove they are struggling against the run. It's right up the gut. 16 yards, 14 yards, 30-yard run. It's just what happens when they face the Rams. So, with that being said, I know he burned a lot of guys, and I can't really say myself that I can trust him starting this week, being that he re-injured what was already injured on the first play against the Rams, which resulted into negative yards. So I'm sure I know you guys seen that. He put up negative 0.50 points. Completely burned you. Completely. And he had the matchup. It's just unfortunate that he got injured on the first play, where it just sucks. He could have been of service. He could have had a great game. But I'm not taking the chances. I am not gambling this week, putting him in, even with the matchup against the Cardinals. He has another great matchup, and it's just you can't trust it with that ankle injury. He's going to keep re-injuring it because he doesn't want to take the time off to rest. Just rest, bro. We need you out there on that field. But with that being said, they have the Cardinals this week. I will look up for the backup to probably take majority of that role. Alfred Morris is not really that much of a... So with that lingering ankle injury, he can't be trusted, can't start this week. He would have been a solid RB2 this week, being with the matchup against the Cardinals that are completely in shambles right now on defense. They're allowing the most running back points in full point PPR right now. They cannot stop the run, people, so Matt Breida, I'm sorry, you got to get the bench. Once upon a time, this guy was a #1 overall pick. He was arguably the best running back in the league next to Le'Veon Bell. He was arguably the best pick of last year's draft, 2016 draft. It's just unfortunate that he had to deal with injury. It's unfortunate that he gets paid the big money and then he loses pieces to the O-line. David Johnson, man. David Johnson, what's happening, man? The decline is clear. The Cardinals are in shambles. They're 1-6 right now. There's no motivation on that offense whatsoever. I mean, what can you do? I know guys have Larry Fitzgerald and they're just sitting there watching him decline on possibly his last year being in the NFL, and then you got David Johnson still putting up serviceable points. Let me not completely, down him, but it's just, you have to question every week. I know it's your pride saying, I'm going to start David Johnson because I went high on him this year. That's completely reasonable. A lot of people do that with their first rounders, and I'm even a victim to it, being that in one of my leagues I have David Johnson, and he gets to start every week with me, even if he puts up 10 points or if he puts up 8 points, and then he has weeks where he puts up 20 points, people. That elite flow is still flowing through his blood, people. He has the San Francisco 49ers. Last time they met, he put up 21 points in full point PPR leagues. So again, I look for him to do that again, to have another stellar performance, to have another elite show out. He can even top what he did last time against the San Francisco 49ers. So David Johnson is definitely getting the start this week. He's getting the start next week and the week after that until the end of the season. I know he's been in question week in and week out. Does he get the start? But your pride is telling you he has to start, and I am with you. He will get the start this week. He will get the start next week, like I said. But it is in question of his value next year. Is David Johnson a first-round pick next year? That's something to think about. I don't think so. He can maybe drop to the second, third. Nah, he won't drop to the fourth. Second and third definitely next year. He's also on my list that drops out of the first round for next year's drafts. And Julio Jones is also one of those guys. Adam Thielen definitely jumps up in the rankings, but that's a whole nother video. I'll save that for another episode. But again, I'm not falling out on my guy David Johnson. DJ will be elite again one day. Make David Johnson great again, please. Next up, Jordy Nelson. He has the Colts this week. With Amari Cooper being traded to Dallas, it's definitely, he takes the benefit of that. He's going to see majority of those targets with the underwhelming receiver core. I mean, Martavis Bryant and Roberts, Seth Roberts, it's like, who are these clowns? But Jalen Richardson and Jared Cook are definitely going to be serviceable for that offense. And with the struggling Derek Carr, we don't know where he's at in his locker room, if they trust him to be the leader or whatever the case may be. But that's a whole nother thing. I still look to Jordy Nelson be that deep ball threat. He definitely takes the top off the defense. So Derek Carr better utilize Jordy Nelson. But I like the matchup this week against the Colts. So Jordy Nelson gets a start only because of the Amari Cooper trade. If Amari Cooper were still on the team, I don't think I would put Jordy Nelson into that starting lineup. But being that Marshawn's on IR and Amari Cooper's sent over to Dallas, it does look like Jordy Nelson has a high ceiling now. It looks like he's a serviceable wide receiver 3 or even a flex this week. So Jordy Nelson, you get to start this week, and I hope you do good. Now, real quick, I just want to touch on a couple of guys. Are we moving on? Are we done with these guys? Are we dropping them? Are we trading them? What is the case may be. Demaryius Thomas, Derrick Henry, freaking lost and forgotten Keelan Cole. We got Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook. What are we doing with these guys? I can already tell you Leonard Fournette, he's a stash. He's a keep. Because when he's healthy, he's a beast. And it looks like if you're a team that drafted him that have a record that's probably going to make the playoffs, I would definitely be happy with Leonard Fournette coming back and being a monster and carrying your way to the championship. Even with Yeldon there, he's very serviceable, yeah, but Leonard Fournette's going to come back and be a freaking bulldog. Now, Dalvin Cook, I know news today that he'll be out until week 11, and that hurts a lot of guys being that they drafted so high for Dalvin Cook. And I'm not too panicking about selling him just yet. If you were to trade him, you know, sell now. And if you're looking to buy low, he's not completely out. I won't say that. I'm not dropping him just yet. Now, Derrick Henry, it's like he heard me talking about him. He had 15 points last week in London. Let me put that into, you know, bold statement, London. Now, with that being said, I don't trust London games. I don't trust Thursday night games. Those games are hit or miss. You get the really good guys that play like shit. Then you get the really bad guys play like they're freaking first rounders. So it's just like, I don't trust those games. I don't even like even talking about starting them or even touching them in my lineup at all. London games are the devil, basically. But Derrick Henry, I'm still not convinced on. He's probably going to see my bench for the rest of the season because it's probably going to be that one game he had, which was in London, where it's going to be great. I mean, come on, man. That offense is struggling with Mariota back there. And Derrick Henry, I'm selling right now, being that he had the one game that was, you know, big. Now, you got guys that are one-game wonders. And then you get the owners that are like, oh, I need to get this guy. I need to pick him up. Waiver wire. Oh, trade you, trade this. You got to love those people in those leagues because they get very, very, very hypnotized over one-game wonder guys. And it's like, there you go. Give me everything you got. But with that being said, Derrick Henry, I am not convinced on to have him being, you know, a serviceable guy. I don't believe it. Now, Demaryius Thomas, I am selling, man. The guy's inconsistent. I already spoke on why you should sit him this week. And I'm trying to get whatever I can out of him, you know what I mean, in a trade. So I'm selling him right now where, you know, the market's hot for him right now. People are needing a wide receiver 3 and a flex. And it's in question if his value drops down even more next year, which is going to be another episode I'll cover in guys' value for potentially being next year. But I'm not believing into the hype of Demaryius Thomas. They already got his replacement there. So he could possibly be traded. So I'm selling while I can. And if you're buying, buy low. Buy low for you can, because he could be traded and be on another team and blow up there. We'll see. Now that wraps up the episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. It's been a great episode. I want you guys to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below on what you guys think of the episode and your start and sit questions down below also, and I'll try to get back to you the best as I can. And I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Real Deal Fantasy HQ. Peace!